Okay, hello everyone. Hopefully you can hear my voice all right on this. My headset suffered a fall, and so so you get the volume. The mic isn't quite as efficient as it was when I first took it out of the box. So I wanted to talk about that apartment from hell story experience I shared a couple of weeks ago on Let's Not Meet, which was recently. I was recently notified that it was removed for, I guess, not meeting the guidelines, which is fine because I'm going to post the removed Reddit link so you can find it. And of course, the original one where you won't see the story on the original one, but you can read all the comments. And let's see. If I can submitted apartment from hell. So this is how it looks on mine, and this should be recording like live. I'm not going to go through and reread all of it because it's an epic story. It's already long as it is, but the comments, you can just go to that. If you posted on it, check your Reddit history, your comments history, and you should be able to at least view the other comments. And like I said, I'll post the removeddit link. I want to address some of the things and extrapolate a bit more on what I wrote. And some people posted in here. Let's see. Your parents knew more about Jonathan, which I did comment on this. I'm not sure if... Yeah, it was stupid and careless on the landlady's part. Like I had said at the very beginning of the story, this happened a long time ago. Like, there is a very good chance that half the people posting in this thread probably weren't born yet. That's how long ago it was, in the 90s. So there's definitely I guarantee there's going to be some details that are off. The one detail that I know is a fact, that apartment, even to this day, it's burned into my mind worse than seeing, like, walking in on your parents or seeing the most shocking gore movie, like a slasher movie, you know, because the first one you see sticks with you, or a shocking scene in a game, like the big thing in Final Fantasy VII, the original one. The apartment is burned into my mind like I can picture it. Just standing there, and people wanted pictures. Even if I wanted to share a picture, I couldn't. And the reason is because I don't have any photos of it, and I know people are going, oh yeah, that's typical fake story. Let me explain this. Around this time that I posted that 4th of July story, my parents were getting into, they're fighting all the time, they're sleeping in separate rooms. They were officially separated and were actually considering divorce. Now, one of the big casualties of that fight was one of our big boxes of family photos. I can't remember if it was my mom or dad who did it, but one of them took it and actually took not lighter fluid, but like the bottle you squeeze into a charcoal grill to get it going. I don't know if that's the same thing, grill fluid or whatever. Squeeze that into the box with all the photos in it, lit it on fire, and then did that. And we didn't have that many photos from that apartment to begin with. From I remember, I knew there was one with me and my mom. We were standing in front of the car. Because I was small, so I was like resting my arm on her shoulder, and like I was standing on the car because I was like a little kid. And I think there was another one from inside the apartment, but honestly, like I said, even if I had it, I wouldn't share it because I don't want to like dox myself. I don't want to like, obviously if certain people aren't comfortable with sharing things like that. But really, you can just Google like the Blue Creek apartments from Silent Hill. That's what the interior looked like, 100%. It was dark, it was gloomy, carpeted hallways. They're all connected by a stairwell that went up. The only difference is that in the real apartment, the stairwell, when you exited out from the actual hallway into the stairwell, it was glass walls. So you could actually, as you were either going up a floor or down a floor, to the bottom, you could actually look around and see the surrounding wilderness. You could see the trees. You could see the vastness of nothing, because there was literally nothing there. And I know some people are like, oh, I just, I want to see it and an image. And because I know this story, this experience, well, it got 145 upvotes. That's not too bad before being removed. But it was something that weighed on my mind. I decided to post that after the Skylar story, which I will talk about that in a different video. That one, fortunately, hasn't been removed, and that one is actually it's funny to me because they both happened to me. But going back and looking through the Skylar situation seems so bizarre to me that it even though I know it happened, it was a real experience, it still kind of feels surreal. Like it feels like, oh, is that fiction? And I guess it meets all of the qualifications for Let's Not Meet, because there's a creepy person, there's creepy experiences, there's some subtle, not so subtle threats, there is some dangerous situations. So that one's still up, and I'll talk about that one in a different one. So the apartment one, like literally look up anything like a derelict apartment building, any apartment building like the Seinfeld building, where all the apartments, you have to enter the main building and then you go to like the individual flats. That's what we call them, suites or flats or whatever. Like that, because a lot of American apartments are kind of like subdivided out into like little duplexes or townhomes or whatever, where you enter from the outside. Well, this one, you entered into the main building, and there was like a little, in the front area, there was like a little lounge type area, and there was supposed to be like a laundry area in there, a whole room for it. The landlady, I think I remember my parents were mad because she didn't want to pay the money to have all those washing machines put in. And I mean, I guess she could have like included it in the rent and just had it something like, okay, well, we're providing you with washer and dryer, so the rent's going to be, that's on the rent. Or I guess she could have rigged it so it could have been coin op. I mean, I'm not a business person. I don't run a laundromat. I've never been involved in any of that, so I wouldn't know. All I know is that room was supposed to be used for that. Instead, she got a washer dryer hookup, the ones that's like the dryers on the top, the washers on the bottom, put it down in that creepy ass basement, which was adjacent to Jonathan's room, which I don't even think that was really his name. I think it was Jimmy or something like it. It was some hillbilly type of name, like Jimmy. I think it was Jimmy. I know it sounds cliche as hell, but he literally looked like Hillbilly Jim, the wrestler, but with like grayer hair, and like, I'm trying to remember if he had a beard or not, because I know I described him in the story that he was a typical hillbilly. I know he had a mustache. He had kind of longish, and he was kind of bald on the top. and his hair was like either gray or white, so he was old. And so that means the landlady was old, and she dyed her hair, obviously, because she was older than him. God, see, there we go, just my mind running a million miles per minute. So I wanted to do this because this was removed, and for people who felt like they didn't, well, I just felt like extrapolating on it for a minute because it's such a bizarre memory. Ultimately, my memories of Jonathan or Jimmy, whatever his name was, are very few. I had that one encounter on the bike, which, looking back on it, I think he could have just been mentally ill. Because since moving where I live now, I have noticed a lot of older people who just act weird. But then I've noticed a lot of, like, not just one, but multiple older people, and I just kind of attributed that to the local culture. Like, I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm also not trying to, like, shame anyone. I'm just like, that's just what I've observed. Like, oh, that's just what people do here. Like, they'll stare at you, or, you know, they'll like walk really slow and gawk, or, you know, just other things. Like, they'll watch people like they're watching TV. And honestly, I don't even live in a rural area anymore, so it's kind of weird. I still feel like the apartment building itself is what got to me. And my parents knew about him, but they told me not to make fun of him because they weren't worried that he was might have been a potential kitty messer arounder or a creep or whatever. No, they were worried that me, which is a reoccurring theme in all my experiences because it's a fucking fact, because my parents never, and they still don't believe me or trust me, that I was with those older kids, the older boys, playing ball, and that we were making fun of him. And now that I think about it, when she had said that he was paying kids pogs to play doctor, I can't remember if she said, I think she said it sarcastically, like she didn't believe it. Which, after reading all these Let's Not Me and No Sleep and whatever types of experiences on Reddit, I would be inclined to think someone like that possibly could be messing with kids. And I'm not bashing people with mental illness, because not everybody who's mentally ill does these things. But at the same time, if he was mentally challenged, that does not give you a pass to endanger children and, you know, like, sexually abuse or harass or harm or just whatever. Which I'm not saying that's what happened. I just remember her saying something which I'm pretty sure was about Jonathan. It could have been about one of the older kids. I probably should have wrote that in the story. It's too late now to do that because it was removed. That's a good point, though. It could actually have been when she said Pogs to play doctor. It could have been one of the older kids, because now that I remember, there was an older kid that nobody liked. He was kind of the Cartman of the group. And he had, like, that late 70s, early 80s type of hairstyle. Like, if you watch E.T., the older brother, he had that hairstyle. And I don't know what that's called because it's not quite a bowl cut, but it was kind of like bushy, or kind of, I don't know. He had that kind of hairstyle, and I would have put his age range around either 5th or 6th grade, maybe, because most of the older boys were between 4th or 6th grade. because I was barely starting kindergarten, so they were quite a bit older. And yeah, and I really wish I would have thought to do that at the time. But like I said, I have I have this thing with me where I'm really scatterbrained, and I say I'm going to do something, and instead I'm like reading instead of writing, or I'm like sleeping instead of doing my chore or whatever. And people might say, "Oh, that's ADD or ADHD." I've been told that. I've been told that before. Um, but I don't know what you would call it. Um, so it might not have been Jonathan. It might have been this other kid whose name I want to say it was Wayne, or maybe it was Kent. Like I said, this was almost 30 years ago. So I don't know for sure. So if you want to, like, I don't know what to say on that. I'm sorry for not putting that out there, for not thinking of that and to put it out there, because I feel like that's an important point, because even though Jonathan, I remember him being a creep, because let's face it, I got a creepy vibe from him, but I do want to draw the distinction that it was the building itself that scared me and not him, because I just kind of thought he was just a weird adult, and I thought most adults were weird, because I didn't observe his, because he wasn't always standing around like in those typical stories. Oh, I was playing in the sandbox, and there he was standing there watching the whole time. He had a balloon in one hand and candy in the other. Like, no. Like, he would always be on his way to or from the shack and come out with the wheelbarrow. Like, he was always doing yard work or about to do yard work or finishing up yard work, and I would notice him not really staring, but just kind of like looking. But I always happened to look when he was looking. And I always just kind of attributed that, like I said in the story, adults being adults, making sure we're not being too loud or disruptive or doing anything bad, because he was very obviously an adult. I mean, he wasn't like some, kid. He was an old man, which means his mom or aunt, whoever the landlady was really old. And she was really old. In fact, if you ever seen Third Rock from the Sun, the old landlady, Mrs. Dubchik, that's what she reminds me of. She had the same type of, well, actually, her hair was shorter in a shorter perm, and she kind of always reminded me of like some kind of like Russian coach or gym teacher, because she always wore like a windbreaker suit, and she was ready to run the mile. She was ready to lead the troops out to, like, you know, get do their thing. And she always had a cigarette. Always. Didn't matter if it was in the building or outside. Didn't matter. She always had a cigarette. If it was not being smoked, it was about to be smoked. And just for the building itself, I don't have any pictures, unfortunately. If I had one that didn't have me in it, I would probably post it, or I would blur myself out. Because just seeing the interior isn't really enough. You need to be able to see the building by itself, illuminated only by the glow of the moonlight, just out there in the wilderness, because that is what really drives home the fact that this is a fucking spooky location. Like, why am I driving to this? Why am I going out of my way from civilization to live here? And as a kid, because I was like, what, 8 or 7, I couldn't really conceptualize the words. All I knew was this place gives me the creeps. And even during the daytime, because I remember thinking monsters don't come out during the daytime. And that's why I didn't really attribute anything to Jonathan other than that he was weird. And I'll even say that today. I have zero proof he was a creeper, like he messed with kids or anything. Just that he was weird because he acted weird. Because the kids, I remember, did not like being around him, because nobody outright said, oh, he messes with kids. It was just he was weird. And I remember because, yes, they did run away and bring me with them whenever he wanted to talk to them, because if I recall, he would monopolize their time. He would stand there, continue to talk about whatever. Those are nice shoes. Where did you get those? Oh, that's a nice coat. Where did you get that? That's a nice haircut. How much did you pay for it? Oh, are you playing ball? I like to play ball too. Blah, blah. You know, like that. And in hindsight, it's mean for kids to do that. But at the same time, I feel like, I mean, I remember being there one time, they tried shutting it down. Oh, we need to go, we need to go. And then they just like would just walk off. And I just walked off because I was like, they're gone, I'm gone. I don't want to be left alone with him because he's an old adult and he's killing the party. And I think that's really the extent of the creepiness. I think he was just probably mentally challenged, socially awkward, didn't know how to talk to people. And the kids were creeped out by him because he looked like a creepy hillbilly. And I know it's judgmental, and you shouldn't really judge people, just be like, oh, they're wearing overalls, oh, they're wearing that, and it's this current year. But taking into the mindset of kids, especially not even in middle school yet, or, well, technically 6th grade is middle school, high school, we don't really think like adults yet. We're very me oriented. We like what we like, we know what we like, and if you're not in that bubble, we're exclusionary, and that's what that is. I feel bad in hindsight, but at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, he was creepy. He needed to work on that, and that maybe just not talk to the kids. Maybe, maybe smile, say hi, and then do his thing. Which, to be fair, for the most part, that's what he did. I never had any links as a kid in my mind to, oh, I made a subconscious link from the apartment to Jonathan. No. I never felt anything paranormal. I just felt the building itself was creepy. It was weird. I got a very weird feeling. When we finally moved, even into our it was a rental home, which we had for like 2 years before we got the house we have now, I felt instantly better. Even unpacking and sleeping in a brand new alien room, which I'd never laid foot in, I felt safe. And people are trying to drill in this idea, oh, was your subconscious about Jonathan? Like, okay, maybe. And I have fairly good memory for things. The worst thing he did, which is why I still, if he never did the thing with the bike, pulled that out, which I think it might have just been a stupid joke, because when I said I want down, he helped me off, and that was it. He never tried restraining me or dragging me off or whatever. That makes me feel it was a creepy joke, because, hello, you're an adult, I'm a kid, and kids are supposed to trust adults. So to me, that was just kind of something that a kid would have done. And yeah, it was the building itself that just, I did not like coming home to it, especially at night. It looked skeletal. Go on Google and look up any building like if I can spell, abandoned apartments USA. So, like, none of these are really quite what I'm looking for. These are all like from the Bronx or from like New Jersey or New York. Okay, this. It's funny, this is Bronx. Okay, even though that is in the Bronx, that is actually very close to what I was describing. Because look at this building. If you replace this fire escape with a glass stairwell, whoops, I didn't want to go into there. Because like I said, the buildings were threefold. There was one facing that way, to the north, to the east, to the west. And in the middle, which was facing that little back alleyway heading towards the suburbs, was just an open courtyard area where you could smoke or you could barbecue, you could whatever. This looks nothing like the buildings, but it gives off the same vibe when I'm looking at it because it looks abandoned, it looks skeletal, which it probably is abandoned. It looks derelict, it looks deserted. There's like one dead tree there. It's not even in the right setting because I can tell this is in a city. It's an urbanized area, but it still gives me the same vibes. Let's see. Because I think like a lot of apartments are kind of unique. Okay, here's another one. It's not really an apartment, they're houses, but they're very similar. See, the same vibe, gloomy, deserted, wilderness looking, dead looking trees and branches. You could probably find it. You could probably do a more refined search than that and find it. So basically, yeah, this is already going on 30 minutes, so I'm going to finish up. I just wanted to touch on that and extrapolate on it with some things. Oh, I wanted to mention the thing under the sheet was definitely a dog. And I had attributed that to Jonathan in hindsight as a what if. Again, I'm not blaming the guy because there's zero proof. I imagine even as careless as that lady was, if she knew, I think she would have thrown him out because she was already having him live in the basement little like boiler room apartment she had cleared out for him. So I would imagine if she knew he was doing legit terrible things, I think she would have thrown him out. I don't think she handled a lot of things wrong, like when the neighbor lady was freaking out. I just remember that because it was the first time I heard the word fuck, and she was like, it's not under fucking control. And the lady went back in because she didn't know I was standing right there. My mom and me were walking by. And my mom's a big gossip. She likes to eavesdrop and listen and things like that. So we're kind of intentionally walking by slow. It wasn't my fault, it was my mom. I mean, like I said, I was like 7 or 8 at the time. And I don't know if he was going around killing animals, which kind of made it seem like, oh, this guy's a creep and this and that. And I can see why the Let's Not Meet mods decided to remove it, because if I had focused solely on Jonathan and been like, oh, it was absolutely confirmed and this and that, I know there's a lot of open-ended things. It was just my supposition, it was just my guess. And I had stated many times that I wasn't the main nemesis. I didn't feel was Jonathan. I noticed him a handful of times, and it wasn't anything like, oh, the creepy clown was staring at me from the edge of the driveway waving a knife. No, it was just like I said, he'd walk by and maybe, just look over for a prolonged minute, but it was always he was doing something, working in the garden, mowing, whatever. My supposition that he probably could have killed the animals. Why would they all just decide to die within the vicinity of the apartment? Let me ask that. Why would all of the wildlife decide to get up and die right in the apartment driveway? It makes no sense. Now, if the apartment lady owned a dog or a couple of dogs that were hunting dogs, and she was letting them out, and they were killing animals and dragging them back or whatever, or getting into fights with other animals, I could see that. I can't remember she owned any dogs. I don't recall there ever being any bear sightings. Like I had said, I mean, it could happen. It just wasn't really something right there that would happen. Could have been hunters or people just messing around with their new gun. Could have been kids doing it. Could have been Jonathan. I attribute it because he'd already exhibited to me weird behavior. And even though most of the run-of-the-mill stuff was just looking, which looking at someone isn't inherently a crime, but there's a difference between looking and being like, what are they up to? And I'm creeping on them. I'm checking them out. There's a big difference. And yeah, so even though I can't verify with 100%, and that's probably another reason why it was removed, which I'm not blaming the mods for, because like I said, it was a lot of open-ended things. I have zero, like there's no news article clippings because he wasn't dragged away in handcuffs and arrested, and he wasn't the main antagonist of the story. The apartment was. Even looking back now, I feel my feelings towards Jonathan was just he was weird. The apartment, I still get the shivers. I get the creeps thinking about accidentally walking down in that fucking dark, dank basement. Jonathan, just a passing moment. The building itself, I don't ever want to set foot in there again. It's like what that psychic and paranormal investigator Elaine Warren. I hope this is as close to hell as I ever get. That's a good quote for that. That apartment, it was just, I hated it. So, or I'm sorry, Lorraine Warren, yeah, Lorraine Warren. That's basically it. At the time, I didn't know what was under there, the sheet, if it was a dog or not. I learned it was a dog. My mama told me that the neighbor lady told her before moving. All this stuff would have been more flowing if I were a teenager. Teenagers tend to be more observant than little kids and tend to gossip and get more. I'm not saying all teenagers gossip, but they're more in the know than real little kids. So I'm going to post links to this so you can still browse the original one and the removed version so you can see the original story, and then the original one so you can read the comments, and you can comment on here, questions and whatnot. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't have any pictures from that time, so I can't show you what the apartment looked like. Just do a Google search, abandoned wooded apartments. And I'll try to see if I can find one. Like I said, from Silent Hill, that Blue Creek apartment, the inside looks just like that. Not even joking. So anyway, it's already 35 minutes, so I'm going to end it here, and I'll talk about the Skylar story next. So I'll see you in that one.